Welcome back to the Den of Episodes. I'm Marlo Fox, and this is your cozy little corner of the internet. So go ahead, grab your mug of coffee or tea, settle into that favorite comfy spot, and let's escape back to the Highlands. Now, before I begin, I must say I've been sick. And I've also, as a phrase we use in the U.S., and I don't know if you do across the pond, we say chomping at the bit when we really want to do something. And I've been chomping at the bit to get back to this podcast. But I've been really sick since I got back from vacation. And today's the first day where I thought maybe I could. So my voice I know is a bit off. And I hope you'll forgive me that. I was away in Portugal for 2 weeks. I saw some gorgeous places, had special moments and time with my other half, but I'll be honest, about a week in, I got very homesick, and I kept thinking about something my dad used to say. There's no place like home. He was right. Whenever I was younger and we would visit my siblings in other states, or I know when he would visit me after I got married and moved away, I know he was still, as much as he loved to visit us, his mantra was, there's no place like home. One night in central Portugal, I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone when I came across something I wasn't expecting. Alexander Morton, the actor who plays Golly in Monarch of the Glen, had passed away on April 15th, aged 81. I'm almost getting choked up thinking about it. I cried, almost to the point of sobbing. And I think part of it was being away from home. This was just a few days into the trip, and already I had been jet-lagged, had stomach issues, a high fever, and lost a temporary feeling. I was physically and emotionally on edge. But a major reason I cried was because Monarch of the Glen and this podcast have become such a big part of my life over the last few months. Even though I didn't know him personally, I've spent so much time with these episodes and these characters. And Golly is in every single one, all 64 episodes. He's the only character of the whole show who appears throughout the entire series. Robert Carlyle, a fellow actor who appears on a Scottish show called Hamish Macbeth that I just might do a recap show about in the future, said he was the kindest man he ever met. And that really stayed with me. So I want to dedicate this episode to Mr. Morton. He brought a lot of warmth to the screen, and he'll be remembered every time people revisit Glenbogle. Rest in peace, Mr. Morton. Season 2, Episode 4 of Monarch of the Glen originally aired January 28th, 2001. The episode opens with Hector waiting impatiently for the mail. Lexi opens the door to the mailman and takes the mail, and Hector snatches it out of her hands and flips through a magazine until he gets to what he's looking for. Two full pages of Archie with the headline that reads, "Lonely Laird Looking for Love." And I thought, oh no, here we go. Hector's up to something. At breakfast, Archie is with his parents, opening a birthday card. Molly mentions it's a special birthday, so I immediately thought it must be his 30th. Archie says he doesn't want a fuss made, but that's like issuing a challenge to make a fuss. Duncan, meanwhile, is complaining to Golly that he's stuck as assistant head ranger and feels like a skivvy. He wants more responsibility. A skivvy's like a servant or someone who does menial work. Golly tells him he should speak to Archie. Lexi overhears and, laughing immediately, sends Duncan off on children's party detail, as she calls it, so I guess the not making a fuss is off the table. Archie is out with Fergal, praising the nature trail and talking about bringing school children onto the estate. He's genuinely pleased with the work Fergal is doing. Then Katrina's name comes up in conversation, and suddenly you sense a tension. Archie asks whether there's something between the two of them. Fergal admits he's been seeing more of her, and it's complicated. Out in the shed, Golly, Molly, and Lexi are going through birthday supplies from past years, determined to make this the best birthday ever. Molly heads back into the house and walks in on Hector with the magazine story. And she knows something's up. At that moment, Hector's on the phone making an appointment for a prospective wife of worthy lineage to visit Glenbogle. Hector's now fully committed to finding Archie a wife without asking him what he thinks of the idea. Next thing, Archie is called into the ballroom where two sisters and their father are already waiting with the tea set out. And he has no idea what's going on. It only clicks when they start talking about him getting married soon. And Archie looks furious and storms out. Who do you think he's looking for? Yep, you guessed it, Hector. Hector goes straight into duty, lineage, and responsibility. Archie's not having it. He even threatens to get a snip so there will be no lineage. He's at the point where you can tell he's thinking, I can't believe this is my life. Molly finds him afterwards and tells him he needs to think about himself. Not Glenbogle, not Hector, just himself. And she asks him if money wasn't an issue, what would he want? And he says a red Porsche. Isn't a red Porsche the sign of a midlife crisis? But 30 isn't quite midlife. I suppose that red Porsche could symbolize a more carefree life than the one Archie's currently living. Meanwhile, Lexi is organizing food for Archie's party, and Duncan is being thrown into leading a group of 10-year-olds through the estate and looking absolutely terrified about the prospect. I thought he wanted more responsibility. Then Katrina comes in with her own storyline. Her bank has messed up a direct debit, and she's received a threatening letter from the estate because her rent is overdue. She asks Archie whether she's just a tenant now, and he tells her those letters are sent out automatically. An elderly gentleman arrives at Glenbogle demanding his cottage back. Years ago, he used to live in a little cottage on Glenbogle estate, and apparently it's now being rented to tourists. He says he isn't going anywhere, and Fergal offers him a bed at his place for the night. Lexi finds Archie to tell him they've got guests, and Archie doesn't take this well. He storms into the room, interrupts everyone, including his parents, and basically announces that he's going to his room and he's going to stay there till his 70th birthday. Now Hector introduces the guests, despite what Archie says. We have Kieran Conway, the Earl of Nisselah, all the way from Ireland. And then his daughter Tanya, who's standing by the window, turns around and wow. Archie, who was ready to disappear for the rest of his life, suddenly forgets how words work. You can see him reconsidering that whole locking himself in his room plan. Meanwhile, over at Golly's cottage, we get a real different tone. Duncan's pouring himself a very generous drink, and Golly can tell something's up. And this part made me feel for Duncan. He opens up about how when he was younger he was bullied, always the butt of the joke, no friends. And suddenly it makes sense. He's not just nervous about showing those kids around, he's reliving his traumatic school days where he never seemed to fit in. Back at the house, Molly pulls Hector aside. She tells him you can't just throw two people together and expect romance to magically happen just because it's convenient for the estate. And right on cue, here comes Archie smiling with Tanya, and he casually announces that they're going for a walk. Out by the lock, Archie and Tanya actually have a really nice conversation. They're talking about their countries, their estates, and we find out her father has done exactly what Archie is trying to do, turn things around and make the estate profitable. But then Archie tells her the truth, that they're flat broke. There's no sugarcoating it. And then we immediately cut to Tanya talking to her father, and we learn that they don't have any money either. Kieran is furious. He says he didn't come all this way for nothing, and he clearly doesn't believe Archie. He tells Tanya to keep charming him, and he'll continue to work on what he calls the old duffer, referring to Hector. So now we learn the truth of why they're really there. It isn't about romance, it's a setup. The next morning, Lexi's in full party mode, trying to keep Archie away from the beach while everything gets set up. At the same time, Fergal tells Archie that Tosh, the old man he gave a bed to the night before, has gone missing. And somewhere else entirely, Duncan is practicing what he's going to say to the school kids over and over again. You can feel how nervous he is. Back in the house, Kieran is already at work. He's casually asking Hector how many acres he has. 38,005, Hector says, and then he one-ups him by saying he has 50,000 back in Ireland. And then he starts really fishing, asking about where the valuable things are kept. Hector, bless him, tries to play along, but we know that there's not much to find. The school kids arrive, and Duncan, he completely freezes. He can barely get the words out. It's actually a little painful to watch. Out walking, Archie and Tanya run into Katrina, and Tanya immediately notices her. She comments on how pretty she is and asks what the story is. And Archie says casually, "Oh, she's just one of the tenants." Right, Archie. We believe that. Sure. Meanwhile, back at the house, Kieran is going through every room looking for anything valuable. In the kitchen, Lexi is preparing food for the party, and Molly casually mentions she got Archie, the red one with the pop-up headlights. And you stop and think, no way. But just wait. At the cottage, Archie and Fergal find Tosh. He's chained himself to a post in what was his former home. We find out that he was sent away after his wife of 40 years died. He had a complete breakdown and stopped taking care of himself. And now he feels he's recovered physically and mentally, and he's ready to come home. This breaks Archie's heart because he wants to help him, but he doesn't see how he can. The estate used to employ 150 people, and now there are only 4. But eventually, Archie finds a way. He tells Tosh that if he helps Golly around the estate, and they can redirect the money from the council that is currently covering the expense of the retirement home, he can return. Katrina's watching all of this, and she sees exactly the kind of man Archie is. Tanya tells her father she doesn't want to trick these people. She sees they're decent. And Kieran, he doesn't care. He tells her they'll use the party as a distraction, take what they can, and leave. Meanwhile, Duncan is having his own little breakthrough. He connects with one of the kids on the tour, who also is named Duncan. And it's actually really sweet, until they find Kieran's car. Both Duncans think it's a really cool car, so they get in, start pressing buttons, and the trunk pops open. And there it is. Silver, paintings, everything Kieran has been stealing. At the same time, down at the beach, the party's getting underway. Archie and Tanya have a quiet moment, and she tells him it would never work between them. And then, very gently, she points out the real reason. Katrina. And just as she's about to ask if Archie is in love with Katrina, everyone comes out singing happy birthday. It's perfect timing as usual. Back at the estate, Kieran is entering Jamie's room. You know the room, the one that virtually everyone is forbidden from entering. And it's really hard to watch. This room holds such sentimental value, and Kieran is going through the room, tearing things apart, throwing things around. And then everything comes crashing down. Kieran goes outside, and there are 2 Duncans, Big Duncan and Little Duncan, sitting in the car, laying on the horn, with all the stolen items in plain view. Everyone from the party comes running, and now they see exactly what Kieran and his daughter have been up to. Back inside, Hector quietly puts Jamie's things back where they belong, and again, you feel the enormity of what this room means to the family and how much they miss their elder son. Tanya tries to explain, but Archie says he'll have to call the police. Hector comes out and stops him. He says Jamie has been disturbed enough. So they let them go. Molly gives Archie his gift, And yes, it is a red Porsche, a toy red Porsche. And honestly, it's perfect. Archie can't help but smile. And you know, in that moment, he feels the love from his family and friends. Hector apologizes to him for trying to find him a wife and says he hopes Archie finds someone who makes him as happy as Molly has made him. And Archie just pulls both of his parents in for a big hug. And I swear I just love this show. And then just when you think we're done, down by the lock, Katrina and Fergal are talking. And suddenly Fergal turns and gives her a sweet kiss on the cheek. And Katrina turns to face him, and they share not just a little peck, but a full-on, whoa, kiss. We'll see what happens in the next episode with that. And now for the animal sightings. All we had this week were the 5 dogs, loyally observing all the goings-on as usual. And if you don't think I'm serious about these animal sightings, although you might have a hint by now, my daughter just sent me a photo from her workplace. She said I'd love it there because there's so many birds to watch. But in the photo, there was a large bird that I think is an egret, which I've also seen here on our pond, and a groundhog in the same photo. And I was so happy. If you live in a part of the world other than the US or Canada, you might not know what a groundhog is. It's actually a large, chunky, wild rodent. And I think they're really cute, of course. It also has its own holiday. We have Groundhog Day on February 2nd, where through folklore we believe that if the groundhog sees its shadow, we will have 6 more weeks of winter. Some other names the groundhog are known by are woodchucks, whistle pigs, which I've never heard of, and land beavers. I've also never heard of that. We've always just called them groundhogs here in my part of the world. There's also a famous tongue twister about the woodchuck. It goes like this: how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And if you're learning English, try saying that a few times fast. Now, I know I've gone off topic, but this is the animal sightings section, whether it's in Monarch of the Glen or in my own daily Fox life. On to our Across the Pond translations. We just had a couple this week. First, we had skivvy. Duncan said he felt like a skivvy when he was complaining about not having enough responsibility. And basically, a skivvy is a servant or someone who does menial tasks. Come on, Duncan, you're not a skivvy. And that's spelled Skivvy, in case you're curious. And our other word was duffer, Duffer, where Kieran referred to Hector as an old duffer. It's an affectionate but also slightly insulting term for an older person who's a bit foolish, forgetful, or out of touch. And that wraps up this week's edition of The Den of Episodes. I'm so happy to be back at the podcast desk. And again, I think I should apologize for my voice. I know it's a bit off. But as I said before, I was just so excited to record an episode today. And to everyone listening, whether you're in the US, the UK, Japan, Vietnam, anywhere else in the world, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a line at thedenofepisodes@yahoo.com so I can give you a shout out and say, hey, in wherever you are. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. As always, I'm Marlo Fox, and until next time, keep the kettle on and the episodes rolling.